Hello and welcome to another motorcycling video. You see by the title that I'm riding the Spyder in the Highlands. And yes, I do know how to spell the word Highlands, but I just thought it was a clever play on words from the word spider. So first of all, a little bit of contextual information, geography or contextual geography. You're probably wondering why this video starts off with me seemingly in the middle of nowhere. And there's an explanation for that. The explanation being that I have admitted in previous motorcycling videos to being the world's worst camera operator. And so that's what's happened here. When I left Goulburn earlier on the day of the ride, which was, by the way, Saturday, the 19th of February 2023, I'm recording the video a couple of days, I'm recording the audio a couple of days later because that's the way I do things. I don't have a microphone or recorder that I carry with me while I'm riding, so I record the audio a little later. So I attached the camera to my motorcycle, turned it on, and went about my business filling up with petrol and all that sort of stuff, and thinking, well, I don't need to record that. You don't need to see me putting my helmet on and off and my gloves on and off and all that sort of boring stuff. But once I've finished doing all those things and I'm ready to start riding, I pressed the button on the top of the camera and assumed that the camera was now recording. Now, as we know, we should never assume because it makes an ass of you and me. In this case, it made an absolute ass of me, but I didn't realise that till I was up in the Highlands, about 80 kilometres from where I'd started off, and I noticed then that the little red LED that blinks that tells you that you're recording was not blinking. So I pulled over to the side of the road here, just where you see me now, and checked, and of course I hadn't recorded anything. So I press record here, and so you'll see the journey from here on. So that's the explanation for why you're seeing me in the middle of nowhere. Geographically, I'm on a road called Sheepwash Road, which comes off the road between Moss Vale and Nowra, passing through Kangaroo Valley. And I'm heading along Sheepwash Road back in the direction of Bowral. So I think that I'm generally going west from where I started, maybe northwest. And I just prior to this gone through a little settlement. Village is probably too good a word because there's not much there, but the school called Avoca. So that's the sort of geography. Now, the Southern Highlands, for those who don't live in New South Wales, I live in Goulburn, which is on the southern tablelands, but the area directly north of us is called the Southern Highlands. It includes the towns of Moss Vale, Bowral and Mittagong, and a few other villages and settlements and towns and so on. Now, for me to get there, I left Goulburn and drove up the Hume Highway, the Hume Motorway, the Hume Freeway, Highway 31, whichever name you want to know it by, to Marulan. And just north of Marulan, there's a turn-off to called the Highland Way. And so I went on the Highland Way through Tallong, Wingelow, Penrose, Bundanoon, Exeter, and then took this back road from Moss Vale to, I didn't actually go through Moss Vale, of course, but took the Moss Vale road that goes towards Nowra through Fitzroy Falls and Kangaroo Valley till I came to this Sheepwash Road. Then I turned back in the direction of going towards Bowral. So that's the geographic context. Now, before I go any further, then I'd like to give you a little bit of information about my bike, and that's relevant because of something I want to talk to you about in a few moments. But for those who don't know, I'm riding a Can Am Spyder. You can see it just the front, the nose of it there in the bike. It's a 2012. Sorry, in the opening screen. It's a 2012 Can Am Spyder. The Can Am Spyder is what's called a reverse trike or Y-shaped trike, and it's called that because it has two wheels at the front and obviously one at the rear. It is a belt-driven machine with a 1000cc engine and a 5-speed semi-automatic transmission. Across the front, it's about as wide as a small hatch, and I'm saying that because that means it's a fairly big and imposing bike. It has an alphabet of acronyms that cover its safety features, including ABS and EBD, which stands for electronic brake distribution, DPS, which stands for dynamic power steering, and VSS, which stands for vehicle stability system and traction control. And there are other things that I don't even know what they do, but they're all designed to keep the bike stable and safe. But as we know, the biggest determinant of the safety of any bike or car is the nut behind the wheel or the handlebars in this case. But I'm saying all those things because this is a bike that is fairly safe. Because it has three wheels, it's quite stable, not like a two-wheel motorcycle. It doesn't lean and doesn't tilt, and generally, providing you drive it carefully and within its capabilities and your own, it probably won't ever tip over, but it's not perfect. Um, so those are the mechanical features of the bike. According to the manufacturer, it's rated at 455 kilos dry. Now, I'm not sure why you'd give the dry weight because no one drives their bike dry. So you add 25 litres of fuel, which I think is about another 25 kilos, add a few more kilos for coolant, engine oil, transmission oil, brake fluid, and so on. And I reckon you're up to about 485 kilos. And then add on an 80 kilo rider, which is me. So you're now up at around 560 kilos of mass that the bike is trying to move, and more importantly, trying to stop at any given point in time. Now, I'm saying all of that to tell you about an incident which I thought I had filmed, but clearly, since I'm not very good at operating the camera, I hadn't filmed. But I feel if I describe it to you, you'll get the general picture of what happened. And I should say, before I go any further and describe that incident, that no lives were lost, no injuries occurred, there was no collision between the vehicles, but it was an example of what's called by some SIDSYM, which is sorry, I didn't see you, mate. So to tell you the anecdote, I left my home and I drove about half a kilometre to the service station that's just down the road from me. Stopped there, filled up with petrol. Nothing spectacular about that. Got back on the bike, and when I get back on the bike, I'm immediately making a right-hand turn. So obviously I'm going fairly slowly there and in first gear. Now, about 100 metres, maybe 200 metres at the most, from that right-hand turn is a roundabout with 4 exits. I'm intending to go straight through that roundabout, and I can see cars coming from both the right and left exit, and cars coming from the other exit directly ahead of me. And I don't know if they're going to go straight ahead or do a 270 turn and go left, or what would be go left. So I'm adjusting my speed and I'm riding accordingly in terms of what gear I'm in and what speed I'm riding, and I'm looking at the road and paying attention to all the cars that are around me, thinking, what's going to happen? Who's going to do what? I want to go straight ahead. Am I going to be okay to do that? Now, about 100 metres or so beyond that intersection is a set of traffic lights, of which there are 3 lanes, one for turning right, one for turning left, which you must turn left if you're in, and one for going straight ahead. Now, for local people, you'll know that I'm at the intersection of Clinton Street and Auburn Street. When I get to the traffic lights, they're already red, and there are 2 or 3 cars, I can't remember exactly, but I think 2 cars in front of me. So I'm going to go through that intersection, and then a couple of hundred, maybe 150, 200 metres beyond that is a T intersection where I'm going to turn left. When you cross the traffic lights, the road becomes a 2-lane road, obviously to go right or left. I'm going to go the left, so I'm moving over into the left lane. Just past the traffic lights, maybe 50 metres or so, is the entrance to a shopping centre. Then there's a service station with a kiosk where you pay for your petrol, and behind that is the exit for the shopping centre. Again, local people know I'm talking about the Woolworths Marketplace complex. So I've gone past the entrance to the supermarket, and I've seen a car coming along the exit, along the road towards the exit behind this kiosk where you pay for your petrol. And I figured, well, I've seen him, he's seen me, I've got the right of way. But I'm adjusting my speed accordingly because I don't know what he, and I'm saying it's a he, it could have been a she. I'm saying it's a he because I'm a male, I guess, and I assume it's another male driving the car, but it could have been a she. So I probably just should say the person in the car. I'm assuming the person in the car has seen me. As you can see, my bike is a big bike. It is difficult to miss. It's broad daylight when this thing happens, and my bike is quite distinctive, so it generally attracts attention. People stop and look at it and pay attention to it. So I assume, as I said, that he has seen, or the driver has seen me. At the last minute, that driver decides to pull out into the traffic. into the same lane that I'm in other words, the left lane, because he's going to make a left turn at the T intersection I mentioned earlier. Now, fortunately, I was traveling in second gear and traveling at low speed. And because my bike has a semi-automatic transmission, that means when I close the throttle and put my foot on the brake, the bike changes down gear automatically. And therefore, not only do I get actual braking, I get some engine braking as well. And there was sufficient time for me to adjust what I was doing to allow him to get into the traffic and to proceed. As I said, there was no T-boning, there was no near miss, there was no collision, there were no lives lost, there was no injury, but it was an example of that SIDSYM that sorry I didn't see you, mate business. But it led me to thinking, after I said a few choice words to myself about this person, it led me to thinking about, now, did this person not see me? Did this person see me but not care? Think, well, I'm a car, I can just get in here? Or did this person see me and not understand the dynamics of what's involved in riding a motorcycle, 2 or 3 wheels, in a situation like that? Now, had I been riding a 2-wheeled motorcycle, that wasn't a scooter with a CVT transmission, I would have had to work the clutch, work the transmission down 1 or 2 gears, work the front and rear brakes, manage the throttle, and as every bike rider will know, motorcycle rider, or even people who ride bicycles will know, as your speed reduces, the bike becomes less stable. In the case of a motorcycle, when you work the brakes, all the energy and forward motion of the bike is transferred over the front wheels, the forks dip and then come back, and because the bike is slowing down, that energy and that mass has got to go somewhere, and it has a tendency to go sideways. So as well as all those other things you're trying to work, you're working to keep your bike upright. Now, the previous bike I owned was a Kawasaki Voyager 1700, which weighs 400 kilos. That's wet, plus the 80 kilos of me makes it a pretty heavy machine to be holding upright in the city at low speed in the first place, or in the town at low speed, and more difficult to hold upright when you've got to suddenly stop because somebody's pulled out in front of you. Now, this isn't an argument about, well, I have the right of way or it's my entitlement to the road. It's about an argument about safety. I would ask if I had a chance, I might have said to that guy who pulled out in front of me, listen, if I had been driving a 3-ton Toyota Land Cruiser or one of those dual cab utes that the tradies have with a trailer on the back or whatever, would you have made the same decision? Would you have pulled out into the traffic thinking, I've got plenty of time to get out into the traffic and keep going and avoid a collision with this vehicle that's coming? If your answer is yes, then I suppose I've got nothing to complain about, not just some whinging motorcyclist. But I suspect his answer would have been no, because he'd have looked and thought, I can't get out into the traffic without this guy collecting me, and he's got such a big machine and traveling so fast, he can't slow down in time to avoid collecting me, and it'll be my fault because I'm supposed to give way to the main traffic, which is the traffic on the road, not coming out of the shopping centre, and so I'll just wait here and let that person go. Now, motorcyclists in general are not asking for special treatment other than for you to be aware that they're on the road. Now, what does that mean? When you see those signs up on the highway that talk about double demerits and wear your seatbelts and all that, and then occasionally they say, look out for motorcyclists or beware for motorcyclists, and motorcyclists check for your blind spots, all that sort of stuff. They're not there as in lieu of, well, we don't know what to say, so we'll just put this up instead of have a nice day. They're there to say motorcyclists are vulnerable on the road because of the nature of the machine that they are on, 2 wheels, 2 contact patches, no airbags, no safety cocoon, no crumple zones. When you hit them, they hit the road, and they are generally more seriously injured than you will ever be. Motorcyclists will always come off second best in an accident involving a car. So, being motorcycle aware if you're a driver of a car means if you see a situation like that, the one I've just described where I'm coming down the road, you're pulling out of a driveway, even if it is a shopping centre, I've got the right of way, give me the right of way. I'm entitled to it. But also, it's going to be safer for both of us. I don't have to make a sudden stop. There's no chance of my bike falling over on me, and there's no chance of me colliding with you if you give me the right of way that I'm entitled to. So when you come to an intersection, scan right and left as you would to see if there are any cars. If you see motorcycles approaching, be a bit more alert, be a bit more cautious, be careful of just zooming across and thinking it's just a bike, will be able to stop, because in the same way as scientists can work out a car that weighs a certain amount and is traveling at a certain speed needs so many meters to stop, the same applies to motorcycles. The distances are shorter because a motorcycle isn't as heavy, but a motorcycle that is moving 560 kilos, that is half a tonne of mass, including the bike and the rider, needs more stopping distance than one that weighs 100 kilos and is carrying someone that weighs 100 kilos. So motorcycles need stopping distance, they need reaction time for the rider, they need stopping distance. And so for you as a car driver, be aware of that. If there's a motorcycle on the road behind you, scan your mirrors all the time to make sure they're still there. A good motorcyclist might move around in the lane a little bit to attract your attention, to remind you, well, oh, yes, I'm still here. If they're in front of you, give them a bit more distance, because when they start changing down through the gears to engine brake, the brake lights don't come on and you might not realise that they are in fact slowing down. So give them a bit more room. Don't tailgate them because they need time to make manoeuvres and slow down and, as I said, work the brakes, work the clutch, work the throttle, all those sort of things, and keep the bike upright as they're going down around a corner perhaps, or negotiating a roundabout or something like that. So being bike aware doesn't just mean, oh yes, a bike over there, everything's fine. It means perhaps sometimes giving the motorcyclist a little bit more time and space to do what they need to do. When you see them at an intersection where they have the right of way, give them the right of way. Don't put them in the position of having to suddenly jam on their brakes, tromp down through the transmission and fight to keep the bike upright because you've suddenly pulled out in front of them and think, well, it's just like a bike, like a bicycle. You just grab the brakes and the thing stops. The motorcycle doesn't work that way. When you put your foot on the brake of your car, it doesn't stop immediately. It takes a certain distance. That distance is dependent on reaction time, mass of your vehicle, speed you're traveling, and so on. So this is not a complaint to say that every person in a car is ignorant of or unconcerned or uncaring about motorcyclists. Not that at all. But it's to say that motorcyclists probably experience an incident like the one I've just described every day somewhere from somebody. All right. Well, that's the end of my lesson about motorcycle safety for the day. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. And if you are a driver of a car, please keep in mind what I've said. If you are a motorcyclist, ride safely. Think carefully about what you're doing. Think about the car drivers that are around. Thank you for watching.